All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in again for the Navigating or Moving Beyond, I should say, Moving Beyond the Coronavirus Economy series that we started over a year ago now, and are sharing insights and hopefully practical tips and ideas and suggestions to help you grow your franchise business. And today's session is on current franchise sales and marketing trends. And for some reason, I think it may be from the time of year or maybe some pollen in the air, but my voice is kind of in and out here. So I will do my best as we go through that. We have some great content we're going to be going through. My name is Tom DuFore, by the way. I'm the CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team. And this is an educational session that we help you to hopefully learn some additional insights into what's going on in franchising. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. I am going to share my screen with you all, and we're going to go through we're going to go through some macro reports, and then we're going to do a deep dive into some very specific franchise reports and go over what's happening in the wide world of franchising. So the first place we like to start is, if you've tuned into these in the past, the first place we like to start is what's going on in manufacturing. I really like taking a look at manufacturing. I think it's a great indicator in terms of where the economy is going and what's happening. And if you recall, last month was a record setter. I think it was the second highest ever recorded for PMI. So this is the PMI's, the Purchasing Managers Index, and this report is by the Institute for Supply Management. And so that's where this report and the next two come from. But it showed that manufacturing, look at how this is up again, and it's 60.7%. 50% is a manufacturing economy break even. So anything above that 50th percentile means it's growing, which is a good sign. So this means that manufacturing is up again at a very high number. So just to kind of give you an idea, that's a good thing. And one of the other points here that I wanted to point out is that the backlog orders for the index registered at 68.2%, which is 0.7% percentage points higher than last month. So that means there's an increase in a backlog in manufacturing orders for this month for the April report as compared to the March report. And this is the most current data available. This is for all of April of 2021. Then let's take a look at the Purchasing Managers Index report for the services industry. And as you see on here, services is again booming. And just to make note, this is the 11th straight month of excuse me, of a positive gain. Prior to that, there were 2 months here, and you can see in 2020 where there was a dip below that 50th percentile for a couple months. And then prior to that, there were 122 months, so 10 years of consecutive positive growth in the services segment. Probably not that all surprising, but just to show you that it is still extremely strong. And last month's was a record setter. So this is very close to the all-time record high, again, for services from the Purchasing Managers Index, which is a really good indicator. And then there's a new report that the Institute for Supply Management started for hospitals. Certainly, healthcare seems to keep growing in terms of its share of the overall economy. And it shows that while it looks like it dropped here in January and February, it started rising. March and April, it's back up again here at 61.9%. So I think when you look at all of these, especially I'm going to jump back to the manufacturing report, these are all great leading indicators. So as you're thinking about your business and franchise sales and franchise marketing, things you can be talking about with your franchisees, how can you use this data really to be talking to them about it? Well, you can share this with them if they're nervous about the economy or where things are going. Manufacturing in particular is a great indicator of what's coming in the future. If manufacturing starts lagging, which we've talked a lot about on this program, but look at 2019, long before the pandemic came into effect. The economy, you see here, 2019, the economy, the manufacturing was on the decline. You can see it was under 50%. So the fact that the pandemic came and then shook the economy, the pandemic happened, but the economy shakeup, it, it by all measure looks like it might have been heading in that direction based on the manufacturing report. So it's a good leading indicator to say, well, orders are up in manufacturing. That means there's a good indication that 6 months from now, a year from now, things are going to be in a good position still. So just things to be thinking about and sharing. I know there's been a lot of press out lately about the unemployment numbers that came out. And, I know in our clients and our customers and people we're hearing just from small businesses across the country, finding staff and people is always an issue. But right now it's even harder. I consistently hear we're hiring, we have good wages, we just cannot get enough applications from people who want to apply for a job. They're submitting, they're getting a few, 2, 3, 4 job applicants for several job openings. And so that's a real issue that's happening. And so I know the unemployment or the new jobs added was low last month, which I think was where is the number here? 266,000 increase in April, when I believe forecasts had it around a million or a million plus. So that's a big reduction, and I know they're trying to find out, figure out what's going on. There's a discussion that it could be maybe an unintended consequence from extra unemployment benefits. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's at least what I'm hearing from our clients who are the feedback that they're sharing with us. So let's go ahead and one potential threat coming down the way, by the way, just so that you're aware of. So anyway, back to unemployment. I'm sorry, I forgot to finish my thought on that. On the unemployment, when you're talking to prospective buyers, this is something that might come up and something to talk about, that, it is that jobs are getting added, but it is hard to find staff right now. It's probably always seems to be true. It's always difficult to find good staff, but just something to be aware of that might come up in your discussions with them. The other thing that's looming here is a tax increase. And I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but it looks like that's being proposed. And this is a study that was put together, and it was shared by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, that talked about this tax increase for corporate taxes from 21% to 25%, which may impact anyone that is maybe looking to buy a franchise and do a retirement rollover through the ROBS program, and they're starting C corps. This is an extra tax that's going to get added to it. And so this report talked about some of the potential reduction in annual employment growth. They're predicting that it could reduce up to 500,000 jobs each year over the next 10 years, reducing the GDP, just lots of negative potential economic consequences that are being predicted out of that. We'll see if it remains to be seen, but it's something that you need to know about, that your franchise prospects might be talking about, and how are you going to address that with them and share that information. This is a new report. I can't say new report. This is a report we have not shared. It's new to our program that we have not spoken about, but this is the Rosenberg International Franchise Center 50 Index. So this is the largest 50 franchisors that are publicly traded. So the largest 50 franchisors that are publicly traded, and this does it by quarters. I do not have first quarter data; was not available on their website, and this is just through the University of New Hampshire, through their School of Business and Economics, the RIFC 50 Index. If you want to take a look at that, you can go ahead and pull that up and see it. But I think this is a really cool thing. It shows how the RIFC 50 index compares to the S&P 500. It's just a nice little benchmark to take a look at. So this is starting back in Q2 of 2000, quarter two of 2000, and it just shows the growth difference, and you can see the growth change. between the S&P 500 and the RIFC. And what's interesting is there was a much larger drop here in the RIFC 50 from the pandemic than you see in the S&P 500. But it's interesting just to see the gap between the two as it's grown and expanded. So again, how can this apply to what you're doing and talking about? Well, it's just something to share with your maybe a franchise candidate that's wondering about how franchising fares compared to other things. Well, the general market, and when you compare the franchise 50 to the S&P 500, looks like overall tends to do better than the franchise 50 tends to do better than the S&P 500 based on this growth. Um, Now, let's go ahead and jump into some franchise specific data that's coming out. So this data here is from the Franchise Insights by Franchise Ventures, and this was just published 2 days ago. So literally hot off the presses, as they say. But how has the pandemic changed the age distribution of franchise prospects? And what they found is that the average age here has ratcheted up a little bit. Looks like it's at about 51 years old. Seems to be that largest the peaking at 51 years old, where prior to the pandemic. Oh, let me stop this. You can see the change here. So it was around 48 years old between January and April of last year. This green line is January to April of 2020 for the average age distribution. The blue line is the January to April of 2021. And you can see the star indicates where the highest, where what the average age was of the age of the candidates that were most likely to be inquiring, the highest number or highest percentage. And in January through April of 2020, it was 47-year-olds, and it looks like 49-year-olds. And then you look at 2021, and it's 51-year-olds. So it's ratcheted up a little bit. So those Gen Xers that are coming in, and maybe it was those 50-year-olds that are now, or near 50-year-olds that are now 51-year-olds that are inquiring. But it's still something for you to take note of what that majority, they're going to be around that late 40s, early 50s kind of a number is what it looks like here. And this is a really nice chart to show what's inquiring today. The green bar is Gen X. The orange bar are the baby boomers, and the blue bar are millennials. And then you see Gen Z just popping up there on the far left in the purple or magenta color. And you can see that by far, just visually, you can tell that Gen X, far above and away, is the largest percentage of franchise inquiries coming out. And millennials are second, but Gen Z by far is your typical candidate, which is looking here at this green bar, 41 to about 56 years old. So just things for you to be thinking about of the types of people, their interest, maybe even just some generational characteristics that might come along with these folks as they're inquiring about buying a franchise. All right. This is one of my favorite reports, and this is something that is absolutely critical for you as a franchise marketing person, franchise salesperson, franchise broker, franchise leader of your company. This is something that's really, really important data. It came out about a week and a half ago. And what's really neat is this is for comparing April of 2020 to April of 2021. And what you see is that basically the data is almost unchanged. It's almost identical. And this shows that most franchise prospects focus only on a few concepts for further inquiry, which means that if you get a lead, a franchise buyer lead, a candidate that's interested, and they answer your call or your email or your text message or however you get in touch with them, chances are that 72.9% of the time that at most that prospect is considering a total of 3 concepts. a total of 3 different brands, which means that you have 1/3, you have a 33% chance that that candidate's looking that for that candidate, if they purchase something, that they will buy your franchise. What's incredible is that nearly half of all of the leads, 45, almost 46% of all of the leads or inquiries are only looking and inquiring more about one concept. So that means almost half the time that you get a lead, that means almost 1 out of every 2 leads coming in is only inquiring about your brand on average. That's a big deal. That's a really, really big deal. And then the balance, about 25 or 26, well, it looks like about 27% of the time, they're looking at 2 or 3 in total. So I think that's a big deal for you to know as a franchise professional, just to be thinking about that and how you treat that differently. So when you're making your calls, when your team is inquiring, when the marketing is working, making sure that you're giving that focus, recognizing that almost 1 out of every 2, that means every other lead is only inquiring about one brand, your brand in that case. So keep that in mind as you're going through it. Make sure you're paying extra close attention to it. I think that's a really important takeaway from this data here, and really for the most part it's unchanged in a year. So the buying behavior hasn't changed all that much. And then number that this is I think our one of our last reports to talk about or go through here, but this is the confidence about the business environment. So this is on the far right. The question asks, is now a good time to start a business? Um, and the respondents, the percentage of people who agree or strongly agree. So the agree is in uh, green, and the strongly agree is in blue. And so this chart shows the combination of the two, and it shows that 65.4% of the respondents, almost 2/3 of the respondents last month, agree or strongly agree that now is a good time to start a business. So what does that mean for you? Well, that means that 2 out of every 3 leads that are inquiring are feeling pretty confident about starting a business right now. They're thinking it's a good time. So a lot of the data we're talking about here can help reinforce that for them and showcase some of that, or talk to them about it. And even if you don't talk about it, you're prepared to talk about it now for attending this. All right. Now, this is the franchise or small business sentiment report. This is the full report that you can download from Franchise Insights here. You can actually this is the link that it was pulled from, but this is the Franchise Insights Startup Sentiment Index. And what I wanted to showcase is on page 5, and the question asked was, how does COVID-19 affect your interest in business ownership? And if April is the most recent data here, it's this black bar on the far right. And what I think is really interesting when we look at it, if you look at this chart, that over and above, far above and away over the last year, because this goes back to March of 2020, the number one factor is this question here, this box here that they're able to select, which says, how COVID affected your interest in business ownership? Well, it boosts my interest in controlling my own destiny through business ownership. And I know that our clients and our team has seen this to be the fact, to see this to be very true, I should say, consistently with prospects, that they're saying this on the phone, they're saying this in communication. And this data here, what I like about it is this gives some real numbers and actual data to validate what you're probably hearing on the phone from folks, that it's actually inspired them to want to do something. What I found interesting is, look at here in April, look at this surge in April of 2021, this of last month, when they were asked this question, how does COVID-19 affect your business interest? And these people said it has no impact. This is an issue that will be resolved before I start my business. So look at this surge. This was this orange bar on the far left was March. So this was right as the pandemic was launching last year. And then you see it drop down to about 10%. But look at this. It more than doubled from last month to this month. And if I were guessing or speculating, I have to think that it's all due to the decline, the significant decline in the COVID and coronavirus cases throughout the country. That as the vaccines continue to increase and more people are having vaccines, that's happening. That people are gaining more confidence. They're seeing, hey, the numbers are going down, the vaccines are working, things are going well. Here's another one that they checked. It makes me favor businesses that would be resistant to this kind of business. So what's interesting to note is the trend that when people said it makes me favor businesses that would be resistant to this kind of thing. What I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. I think that'll be easier for you to see. Sorry about that. But if you look at this 26.1%, and you notice you can see this trend, it's just kind of steadily declining over the course of almost a year now. And what does that mean? Well, I think to me, that means that a lot of the folks coming in are going to be, more people are going to be open to exploring all kinds of businesses. It does no longer has to be pandemic resistant or recession resistant, as some of the language was very. Whereas mid pandemic, it was much more of a priority. So I thought that was interesting. So those were three takeaways there that I wanted to highlight. Here's an idea of what kind of buyer is coming into the system. So most aspiring business owners are currently employed. And this blue bar on the far right is April. And this blue is full-time employment. The green is part-time employment. The yellow or orange is freelance or consulting. And then the red is a current business owner. And what's interesting to see is kind of this uptick in freelance or consulting people that are now looking at maybe starting their own business or maybe buying a franchise. And I wonder if, as this number has increased here, you can see in April, that number really increased quite a bit and stayed pretty high throughout the pandemic into today. And you have to wonder, were those folks who maybe were either let go or downsized because of the economic shock, or maybe these were freelancers or folks who their business really just could not weather. They're maybe sole proprietors, freelancers, kind of bouncing here to there, and now they've got to do something new. I just think that's interesting. So you've got between freelancers or consultants and current business owners, if you add this together for April, you're looking at about 29%, almost 30% of leads coming in. So what does that mean to you? Well, 3 out of 10 that you're talking to have some experience in self-employment as being a business owner. So roughly 3 out of 10 leads coming in are probably going to fall in that bucket. And about 70% are going to be employed in some way, shape, or form. So they're going to be employed as I'm sorry, that did I do my math wrong? I did do my math wrong. That should be about 40%. I'm sorry, 60-40. Oh my goodness. Probably sitting there, hey Tom, that's about 40%, not 30%. So about 40%, 4 out of 10 leads, or 2 out of 5. Out of every 5 leads, 2 are most likely current business owners or freelancers. They've got self-employment background, and 6 out of 10 or 6 out of 10, or the other 3 out of 5 are employed in some way, shape, or form. So what does that mean? I think it just means that you need to be recognized that the concern about starting a new business for those currently self-employed, they're not going to be maybe as scared about starting a business because they've already done that. So that fear may not exist there. And then we talked about this, but just about the demographics by age of folks who are interested in starting a business today. And we talked about Gen X and millennials being the leaders in that. And you can see Gen X here in April is the blue bar. 53% are Gen Xers. Then you've got Gen Y or millennials at almost 30%. So you're talking 83% of interest is coming through either a Gen X or Gen Y or millennials. And then you've got about 15% are baby boomer, and then balanced in other between Gen Z and the silent generation before that. So just things for you to take note of as you're going through that and what that looks like. So those were the key points that I was hoping to address and cover today and talk about so that you can be prepared when you're talking to prospects and at least be ready when those leads start coming in. I would love to open it up for anyone who is interested in having asking some questions. Feel free to type it into the chat box in chat box, raise your hand. We've got a reasonable sized group here, so I'm happy to unmute anyone who would like to say something. So, all right, Andrew, I've got you coming up here. Let me see how I can. Here we go. All right, Andrew, are you there? If you can take yourself off mute, you're free to talk.
Can you hear
Hey
me
there.
now, Tom? Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, on the stats you show, which are really very revealing, extremely interesting, is there any propensity to expand, contract them on geographical parameters, East Coast, West Coast, North, South, sort of thing?
Yeah, I have not seen any breakdown on that. This is just a cumulative in general. I think there's some data in terms of location. Let me find this here. But I think the last time it was updated was in Q4. Let me see what we have here. Franchises. I'll pull this data up. What I don't know, I'm going to share my screen again. That's a great question. So that, here we go, share screen. All right, so here's what Franchise Ventures is showing. So this list below shows a percentage of states where franchises are currently seeking new franchises through the Franchise Ventures marketplace. There are two common reasons why all franchises are not available in all states, and we all know that not every franchise registers in every state. So percent of franchise listings. I don't think that's really what we were looking for there. Let me see if I can go back by location and see what else we can just.
That's actually pretty helpful, Tom. Actually,
yeah.
that right there, that kind of gives a sense of direction.
Yeah.
And from there, I just read the file, get the numbers, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll give you, it gives you something to work with. It's not, it's not perfect, but it at least gives you a little something there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, suggestions, ideas here as we're looking at this? All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone tuning in today. Hopefully you were able to take some information out of this. And actually, I have one other quick chart I just wanted to show you. I don't know if you guys look at this, but I take a look at the coronavirus charts and graphs that are put together. And there I use it's worldometers.info is where I go, worldometers.info. And then you can click in on coronavirus. And then I click on the USA to see what's going on in the USA here. And I'm going to show you some trends of what's happening. So here is what's going on over the course. Let me zoom in on this. Here we go. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I just want to show you this real quick before we go. Thanks for hanging in, everyone. I forgot to have this screen up here. But here is the daily new cases in the United States. This blue line that I checked here is the 7-day moving average. And this is right now. I mean, this is live. I just pulled this up. This is daily new cases in the United States. And what you can see here is, I mean, you can literally see almost to the day where the um, when the vaccine started rolling out, right around mid-January here, that started coming out, and then you can see this just steady decline. I mean, just kind of leveled off there for a few weeks in mid-March or in mid-February and March, and look at it starting to decline again here. So I think that's a big deal. And then when we scroll down to, this is daily number of deaths. Let me do the rolling seven, excuse me, 7-day average here. You can see the impact going on. I mean, you see these numbers continuing to go down. So just to give you some, if you're not looking at this or not familiar with it, these numbers are what's being reported. I mean, this is just being taken from, I believe, the CDC website for the numbers that are reported. They just aggregate the data and put it in a nice little chart here. And let me stop sharing. And looks like we might have a quick question here. Is there a propensity toward established brands? Okay. So another question came in here. It said, is there a propensity toward established brands or emerging brands really accepted equally? That's a great question. Most of my time is spent in emerging brands, and I would say it's probably going to depend on your candidate. How big of a deal is it that they're buying into a well-known brand? And I think that's going to vary candidate to candidate. As you all know, anyone in the franchise sales world knows this, that the well-known brands, for most franchise buyers, most of the territory is gone. So, if they want to buy I don't know, just pick let's say a Dunkin' Donuts or something, a very large franchise. Well, unless you're probably moving out west, where their market share is not as great. If you're out east, Midwest, I mean, if you're not out in some random pocket, if you're in a large, a top 10, top 20 market, chances are there's very little opportunity available. So you might want a business that's close to home or something. Chances are it's not available. So I think that's the big takeaway, Andrew, that, yeah, obviously, that the large brands tend to have limited territory. The new emerging brands, their upside is, hey, territory is available. We just don't have as much maybe as well known of a brand yet, but we're growing. So it's just a difference of what that buyer's looking for there. So maybe not a great answer, but at least helps address that there. Any other questions, ideas, thoughts while we've got a group on the line here? Great. Well, I appreciate everyone being on the line. Thank you again for being here. This was fantastic. We look forward to having you back. Remember, every week we've got a webinar like this every week. So hopefully we continue to give you some relevant topics to dial into. And this session here, we will continue to do once a month to inform you on what's going on in the wide world of franchise sales and marketing. Thank you all. Have a great weekend.